guys, welcome to Boom Roasted. We have a special guest here, Miss Stephanie Dunker.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Yeah, it's going to be great. And our coffee today, so I have to tell you a little bit about it. So there is a roaster in Auburn, Alabama called Toomer's Coffee. Toomer's is the last name of the family that runs it. I met them like years ago, probably like 15 years ago. I went to their shop. Their story is amazing. If they're watching, shout out. They were missionaries. And they came in from the missionary field and wanted to continue to support their missionary friends. So they started like a small roasting business and to support them. But then it got like big and they had to open shops. And so they had several shops there in Auburn, Alabama. And then they went to like consulting. And that's where I had met them. We were opening up a shop in Chipley, Florida with a church I was going to. And they come and help nonprofit shops start.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. So they were amazing people. And so I ordered us, this was a new one I haven't tried before. It's called Suwanda.
That's good.
I'm sure there's a story behind it, and I would love to hear what it is. But it's Rwandan and Sumatra blend, which Sumatra is my favorite like region because I feel like the beans are like super rich and they roast really well dark. So I'm a fan. I think it's good. I'm excited about
I actually
it.
can't stop drinking
Yeah.
it.
So it's good. It's good.
Mm-hmm.
So Stephanie. We are the Stephanies of the nonprofit.
Yes, ma'am.
Two of them. There's at least 5 of us.
I think so, yep.
So literally when I talk about you, I just call you Dunker.
That works for me.
Because they're like, wait, which Stephanie? Because they're everywhere. But we met from Nonprofit Connections.
Mm-hmm.
I run Mission 180 and work at the church, and you work for NECAC.
Yes.
And you've been there how long?
I am coming up, well, I guess in November or December, I guess, would be 5 years.
So we basically started around the same time then.
Yes.
Because it was it's been 6 years since we moved here, and then Mission 180 really launched about 5 years in. So that's so cool. I talked to so many people that things started for them 5 years ago, which is right at COVID time.
Yeah.
Which is crazy. And that's how I kind of met a lot of nonprofit partners was when COVID hit, we were just getting ready to launch like some sort of outreach. Wasn't really sure what it was going to look like. And I just started meeting everyone. I was just like, everybody's shut down right now. Maybe I can at least have conversations with people and find out what services they offer. And I think I actually met NECAC through TCA.
Probably, yeah.
Is just a board of a bunch of us that come together and discuss like needs in our community, and then we have just a compilation of funds so that we can work together to meet things that fall through the crack. Which I love, which is basically what Mission 180 is about. Like, how can we fill in gaps? So it's been a great resource for us as a church and a ministry to partner with people because I have to call you sometimes to be like, hey, what do you know about these people? Like, what's going on? How can we help? So I just wanted to talk a little bit about like, you've worked there for 5 years, but how long have you been in nonprofit?
So 5 years.
5 years. So that's when you started was in the nonprofit. Wow.
Yeah.
So you started 5 years ago. You're a believer.
Yes.
And so like for you, like how did those two worlds collide for you?
So at my previous job, it was at a retail shop, and it was more about, it was all about sales.
Maurice's,
yes,
right?
That Maurice's,
yeah,
yes.
We've had that conversation.
So I was the store manager, so in charge of the store and in charge of all of the aspects of the business. And, part of that is selling clothes, also selling credit cards, selling benefits, like all of those kind of things. And I had done that for 7 years, and I loved it because I was helping women. Now it was a different kind of helping them, but we all know, we go through weight changes and life changes and all of the things. And if we're not comfortable in what we're wearing, it doesn't feel very good.
That's right.
So I really drew onto that aspect of the job. Is helping people feel comfortable or back to themselves or, embracing the new change and whatever that would be.
Yeah.
However, it did come to a point that it was making me kind of uncomfortable, more like pushing the credit cards and pushing all of these benefits that I knew is not always the best thing for people to be doing.
And you'd see people struggle, like,
yes,
because I worked in retail management for 5 years too. So I worked with Cato, and then I went to work for Maurice's, both in retail management. And you would see people come in that would pay off just enough so
Yep.
they could charge more. And you're like,
Yes.
oh gosh,
Yeah,
that's
and
probably a pattern.
yeah, and it really started like that really bothered me.
Mm.
I was not comfortable asking people that. I didn't want to. It wasn't something that I believed in. It
Hmm.
wasn't something that I was willing to do myself,
Yeah.
and that's kind of something that I have uh that I really believe is that I'm not going to ask somebody to do something that I'm not willing to do. And the more that I had to do that, the more I was just like, I don't want to do, like, this isn't right. I can't do this
Yeah.
anymore. So I started looking for employment that lined up with my family, as
Mm.
well as lined up with that part of me that wants to do things for people that matter.
Okay.
Like, I was feeling so materialistic at the store towards the end of my time there, because everything was about how many pants you can sell, how many
Yeah. The
things you can
contest
add on.
constantly when I was
Yes,
there,
yes.
like how many, especially like with the credit card thing, that was a huge
Yes,
deal
that, and
because
that,
they were measuring how many you were doing in the
yes,
store.
yep,
So,
yep. And my part of my evaluation was based on
yep.
those kind of things. And
Hmm.
I just didn't. I wanted to do something that mattered, and to me, jeans and credit cards at that point in my life
Yeah.
was not that was not it. Like,
Yeah.
it's making it to some, it made them in a worse spot, not in
Yeah.
a better spot. We weren't doing it to better their lives. It was going the opposite way a
Yeah.
lot of times financially. And I just really needed to be doing something that A, mattered, and two, that lined up with what I believed was
Okay.
right. So that's where I went looking more for the nonprofit type of jobs.
Yeah. And I know even whenever I worked in retail, so I had worked in retail for years before I ever went to college. And then when I went to college to get my degree in ministry and Bible, I thought I was going to go straight back into ministry. And,
Mhm.
that's funny because then I ended up back at Maurice's. And so I was working at Maurice's, which I love the company there
Yep.
far more than I did the other company I was at. But there was a couple of times though that I felt like I was still doing ministry there.
Yeah.
And like you said, like helping people, but like we had a big tornado hit in our area when I lived in Cleveland, Tennessee. And I was able to like advocate to get them closed
Yep.
through the company and those kind of things. Like we also did like a drive that, because we were hit, the tornado hit us and they supported us through that. And it still kind of played on that I knew I was kind of made to do.
Yes.
Like, this is what I want to
Mm-hmm.
do all the
Yeah.
time, not in a moment of disaster only.
Yes.
So it did help me kind of see and kind of hone some skills. So I'm grateful for that. And the people skills, of
Absolutely.
course,
Yeah.
all walks when
Mm-hmm.
you're, dealing with retail. And so I do think I am grateful for those skills and the managerial skills, just like the training and all was really good
Uh,
for me there.
They have excellent training.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I do agree with you on like the disasters. Like, they
Yeah.
really do step up. I remember that whenever there was a house fire, if the family came in to us, that there were things that we could do. I can't remember the exact amount. I want to say it was like $100 or two
That's what
hundred
I think it
dollars
was when
worth
I
of
was there.
yeah worth of clothes that the process that Maurice's had the process, like, it looked like they were just shopping and they go up to the register and then we
Yep.
check it all. Like, so nobody, like, it was very, like, nobody knew, like, oh,
Right.
they're,
Yeah.
whatever,
Hmm.
but like that was something that we could do, reach out to those families that are really hurting to try to get them at least, something. So I do
Absolutely.
definitely agree with you on that.
Well, and you started out in NECAC in a different county than when you're at now,
Yes. Yep.
and there you really advocated to get something started that's not at other NECACs. Tell me a
Hmm.
little bit about that.
So I started the last week of November, and that was the week of Thanksgiving. So I really was there for like 2 days. Signed my paperwork, all that
Mhm.
kind of stuff, and then 2 or 3 days, I think. And then in December, I was able to go back to my office and start working. Start seeing clients and start kind of
Mhm.
figuring it all out. It took maybe a week. I'm not even sure that long. Like, when I would see people's income documents and then I have their bills, trying to help them line all of these things out. There was one lady specifically. She worked. She brought me her pay stub. She brought me her electric bill and her rent statements and those sort of things. And I was looking at them and I said, "How do you pay for food?" Like one of her paychecks was $0. And it was because of her uniform. Like she didn't work enough to cover the cost of her like uniform washing or like whatever, whatever they do for their uniforms. And so like she basically worked to wash her uniform that week.
Yeah.
And she had told me, she said, "Well, my boss lets me take the food that they are, clearing off of their little shelves or whatever, little coolers."
Yeah.
And she said he lets me take that home, which he's not supposed to do, but he is, letting
Yeah.
her do that. And I was like, this is just insane. Like this is right here. She doesn't even live far from here. Like this is just crazy. And then so I still really tried to make a point to pay attention to that. Like how much is left over for food? And
Right. Which is a necessity. We're not
yeah.
talking about looking to see if they went to Maurice's
Yeah,
that week,
absolutely.
It's just
Yeah.
like what are the basics
Yeah.
here?
And then there was like several people like within the
Mm.
first 2 weeks of me even being in my office, and the same question, like, how do you eat? Or like what are you, how? Like
Yeah.
it just was so mind-blowing to me. And then there was the lady that made me start this pantry where I was like, no, this is enough. Like we've
Yeah.
got to do something. She was an elderly lady that had a house fire
Mm.
in a different area, a different county. And she was in the hospital here in Hannibal. And when she was released from the hospital, she moved to New London, where my office was. And it was just her, and she had a nurse that would come in to kind of check all of her, wounds and all of that stuff from the fire. And the nurse would be bringing her water because she didn't even have water. So the nurse would bring her like bottles of water when she came. And when she was well enough to kind of be able to walking around, she walked up to my office to see if we had anything. And she told me her story. And I'm like, this little lady is by herself. And now that her nurse is gone, now she had nobody to
Mm.
rely on for food, and she had no transportation, so she couldn't go anywhere to even go to a store. And it was just, I was like, this is enough. Like I'm done with this. Like we have got to do something.
Yeah.
And so that's when I really made it a point, like there has got to be access to food in this town.
Yeah.
And so that's what we created.
Yeah, and then I mean, you just created something within a nonprofit that really wasn't a food resource,
Yep.
in a town that it made a huge difference in.
Mm-hmm.
And then you made connections with different local places to be able to
Yes.
pick up food
Yep.
from them. So the one thing that I really loved about your food bank was it wasn't just dried goods.
Yeah.
So you guys had access to vegetables and meat and things like that that are commonly needed
Yeah.
because dried goods can be found in some
Yep.
places, but
Mm-hmm.
needing those other things, those perishable things, is a big deal. And you weren't afraid of
No.
calling
Yeah.
places and that's what I love because that's one thing I tell people all the time. One of a mentor of mine had said, "Don't say no for people,"
Mm-hmm.
and then my approach has always been, if they say no, I'm in no worse shape than I am right now.
Absolutely. Yep.
Take a chance.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes people just want to be asked, or they just haven't thought of it
Yeah.
or haven't had an avenue for it. And then when you bring it up, they're like, well, yeah, that's an easy thing.
Yeah.
And then we partnered together where you have like overflow of things that you need to move. And I was able to come pick up, or you couldn't pick up, and I went and picked up for you. And so it ended up being a great partnership for us as
Yep.
well.
Mm-hmm.
And I would send people to you to go get food or pick up. And so I love the communal aspect of a lot of the nonprofits in the town
Yes,
for
I
that
agree.
reason.
Yeah.
Because I think we work really good. Just yesterday, I mean, we were
Yep.
sitting there and somebody had too much bread and then somebody didn't have enough. And I mean, we shared and we were able to work together on that. And that's just beautiful to see.
Yeah, I agree.
Because they're all the different places in our town and even the neighboring county where you worked then, we're reaching different people.
Mm-hmm.
And so to be able to share like that is very beneficial, I think.
Yeah, and I think that the sharing aspect of it is so important.
Yes.
And especially a lot of times with food pantries, we don't know what we're getting. We don't know when we're getting it. And I would say that's probably pretty standard for all food pantries.
Yes.
It's just like, sometimes it falls in your lap and
Yeah.
sometimes you have to work for it.
Yeah.
But really, because that's not my food. That's the
Right.
community's food.
Exactly.
And for, sometimes like just like yesterday, like if those 100 loaves of bread or whatever it was would have been held on to, it was going to go bad it's just going to
Right.
sit in an office over a
Yeah.
weekend. Where now it is going out to families today,
Right.
in a few
Exactly.
hours.
Mhm.
So like it's solving the mission of feeding people, even though it's not my people or in
Right.
my town, where my office was. Like, it's still people.
Well, and I think what is so beautiful about that too is, um, so when I first moved here, I had no problem meeting with nonprofit people. They were super willing, to talk about what they do, what they need, all the things. You know who I had a hard time getting to meet with me? Churches.
Mm-hmm.
And it made me a little nauseous, I'll be honest. So I've never been one, like you said, I don't have to have my stamp on it. You don't
Yep.
have to put Mission 180 on
Yep.
anything. As long as people's needs are being met, don't care,
Mm-hmm.
and I think my church is very supportive of that. My pastor, Compassion Church, they're amazing when it comes to that. We don't need to have our name on anything. Meet the people's needs,
Yep. Yep.
but what I've found, and I found that not all churches think that way,
Mm.
and it needed to be theirs, and they needed to come up with the idea, they needed to implement the idea, and they weren't really interested with working with other people, whether it was a denominational issue or not. And it's never that for me. As far as denomination goes, I don't care at all.
Nope.
And in fact, a lot of the agencies we're with are not faith-based
Nope.
nonprofits. I don't care about that either.
Yeah.
Like it's still like, because I believe when the scripture talks about like he can change the heart of kings, I think that's really speaking to he can use anyone anywhere.
Yep.
And when it's his mission, I'm going to work with people who are not faith-based,
Mm-hmm.
because sometimes that's where that biggest push can come from. And you don't know if by what you're doing and how you're serving people, if it doesn't change their hearts, and want to see Christ and want to see more. And so, because I've had like this young girl, I think I actually come and picked up food for you guys that I had brought food to for almost 3 years. She had a cancer diagnosis. I'd helped her get into a house a couple times. She had struggled with a drug addiction. And through that continued relationship, she asked me before she passed away to lead her to
Yeah.
Christ. And it's like, when we're so busy trying to say that's mine, I've got to create it, I've got to do it, and not willing to partner, you're going to miss those
Mm-hmm.
moments.
Yeah.
And I think we're going to be held accountable for those moments as believers. And so we have to let go of that.
Mm-hmm.
Let God do what God does, because if we really believe in the word, it says that our reward is in heaven. If we're rewarded here, that's all you get.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're looking for that stamp here and that name here, great, you'll get it here. But what about in heavenly places? If we're believing what that word says, and I would rather have that reward there and stand before him and say, good and faithful.
Yep.
You did it. And so instead of him being like, man, you missed a lot of
Yeah.
opportunities to feed
Mm-hmm.
people when they were hungry and clothe people when they were cold. And I don't want that ever to be said of me.
Yep.
And to cut things off because I think it needs to say my denomination name. I hate it. And I
Mm-hmm.
think Jesus hates it. And so that's something that I love about the relationship that we have. And so, like, in that, a lot of people think, like, what we do, because we've seen agencies get so jaded
Yeah.
by the work that they do, because honestly, we do see people in their work in crisis.
Yep.
What we do, and so does police officers and caseworkers, and it's not just the nonprofit; it's community service
Yeah.
in general and kind of
Mm-hmm.
service work. What do you do to keep yourself from being jaded by the people who take advantage, or the people that aren't doing enough? I mean, what do you do?
So for me, I think because that is hard. It's
It
really
is.
difficult. And I'm not gonna lie, I get wrapped up in it sometimes too.
Yeah.
I just want to throw my hands up and be like, fine, whatever.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
that sort of stuff. Like that still does happen. For me, what I try to do is like I need to be out in the community. I need to be finding those that need help the most, and working with those that need help the most, and working with the ones that are difficult to work with.
Yeah.
Because most of the time those are the ones that are hurting the most,
Yeah.
that have no support, or that have been supported in the wrong ways.
Yeah.
So like for example of that, during when the warming center was open, I went down to Loaves and Fishes in the morning for breakfast and just sat with the people that have to utilize the warming center.
Yeah.
And I had texted a friend as I was sitting there, and I was like, some of these people that are here are the most humble, kind, caring people that I have ever met, and they have nothing.
Yeah.
They have absolutely nothing. And they're
And so willing to share.
yeah, yeah. And there was this one gentleman came in and his hands were completely tore up from the cold. He had like just sore, like, where his skin was cracking
Yeah.
and, those sort of things. And it was hard for him to even cut up his meal that he was eating because his hands hurt so bad. And at the next table over, there was a gentleman that pulled out a bottle of peroxide and he set it on the table of the gentleman that had the cracked hands. And he said, "Here, you can have this." He said, "I don't know how much it will help, but it'll help a little bit." And so the guy's like, "Oh my gosh, thank you so much for that."
Wow.
And, just immediately started right there at the table, just started pouring that stuff on it, the peroxide on his hands. And he went to hand it back to him and he said, "No, you keep it. It was only 98 cents. And I just was like, oh my gosh, like, yeah, it was 98 cents when you don't have 98 cents.
Yeah.
Like, he just gave somebody everything
Right.
that he had
Yeah.
and, to help him.
Mhm.
And like, how often do you look around and that's not happening?
Yeah.
Like the hate and the evil and the just entitlement, I guess, I
Yeah.
don't know, just the self-thinking and
Yeah.
me, and, just like these people have nothing. Like,
Yeah.
they don't even have a place to sleep at night. And he just gave somebody else something because he needed it worse. Like
Mhm.
that, it's just like those moments are what
It's almost like
like,
their
keep
eyes
you
are
going.
more open
Mhm.
when they're in that state than they are when you and I are. Because I talk about this a lot. Like when you're so comfortable, you forget that
Mhm.
other people aren't.
Yep. Yep.
And it's not until you get uncomfortable that you start doing and seeing things more
Yeah.
clearly. And I think that's a really good point because I used the illustration one time. It's like, when you're in bed, everything's perfect. The temperature's great. Like you're so cuddled up in there, the bed's so comfortable, and you're not going anywhere.
Yeah, you're
Like
staying
everything's
there.
great. But
Yeah.
the minute I've got to go to the bathroom,
Yeah.
I'm hot, I'm cold, you get up and you do something about
Mhm.
it,
Yep.
And I think that's what has happened to our world is they always are waiting for someone else to do it
Yep.
oftentimes, or they're just so comfortable they're not
Mhm.
doing anything themselves.
Yeah.
And until you like peel back, and I'm the first one when people start talking to me, especially if I know it's people that do nothing, I want to make them wildly
Yeah.
uncomfortable
Yep.
and be like, what I seen today? Do you know what story I heard today right here in your community?
Yep.
Like, I want people to be so uncomfortable that they have to think about it and it bothers them to sleep when they're doing nothing.
Mhm.
And so I think that provokes me to move forward. I do struggle sometimes. Like I've had a really heavy week this week. You hear a lot of really sad stories. And even like, because I'm friends with a lot of other nonprofit workers, and they have just like called me, come and sat with me for a couple of hours and just struggling.
Yeah. It
You
was a hard
know,
week.
it's,
I will agree with you on that.
yeah.
Very
And so
difficult.
just like trying to stay focused and not getting also so weighed down that you can't move
Mhm.
forward and you just get like so burnt out from it. And so trying to stay full, and that's what I was telling one of the people that I talked to this week. I said, it is so important when you pour out so much that you stay full yourself.
Mhm.
Because whenever you are a person that's daily talking to people and pulling them off of the ledges and pouring into them and doing for them, you better be full
Yep.
or you will just walk away. And so, and for me, what that looks like and what I shared with her is every single morning. And I haven't always been able to do it in the mornings because my kids are big now, but when they were little, mornings were not
Yep.
doable.
Yep.
So you have to find what that works for you. But for now, in this season, in the morning times, I get straight up. I stumble to the coffee pot. I make me a cup of coffee and I sit down with Jesus. Like
Mhm.
I have a full hour in the morning. I try to a full hour. It's not always an hour, but reading my word, praying, not on social media, which that gets pulled in with the text
Yep.
start going off
Yep.
early. But I try my very best to just have that silence in the morning with the Lord and to focus myself. And then throughout the day, listening to worship music, watching podcasts, watching sermons, like feed me, feed me, feed me
Yeah.
is the way I feel. And some days I need more than others. And just like And I can feel like that edginess coming out,
Yep.
and you'll have that. Those are the days, don't you think, that when the difficult people come in the door,
Yep.
that you
You're
have to
already.
ban from your building, and you're like
Yeah.
you're already on the edge, and you're
Yep.
like, why am I doing any
Yep.
of
Yep.
this?
Yep. I was at church on Monday. I was at a meeting and I almost didn't go. I almost thought about rescheduling. Like, can I get this information some other way? Like, it was just Monday and it was already a hard day.
Yeah.
So it was just one of those things. Like, I kind of just wanted to be with my kids and I just wanted to like snuggle them. And but I did go. I did go, and I'm so glad that I did because. Our pastor had said something that I needed to hear. And it was something I had never, ever, ever in any of my walk with Christ or I'd never thought of it this way. And he was talking about Jesus and how that when things are hard, we need to feel blessed by feeling empty and pouring out our cups for others and all of these things
Mm,
because Jesus poured out for us. And why that was never like, like, oh, that's what I'm doing. Like, I
yeah,
am being like Jesus by pouring into others. And
right.
although I am empty right now, or I feel empty right
Yeah,
now, like Jesus is constantly pouring into me so that I can pour out to
that's right.
others. So like that was something literally never, never in my mind
Yeah,
was that thought ever there. Like being empty and feeling discouraged and feeling all these things is what Jesus is doing for us.
yes,
So it makes it a lot easier during those hard days. Like just when you're like all this, I think every day this week, I'm like, Jesus is pouring into me so I can pour out.
yeah,
And it just, I never thought of it that way. And it was
yeah,
just so like, oh my gosh, like it was just a, oh my gosh moment. Like,
yeah,
wow, like, okay, like I can make it through this week, like
yeah,
that sort of thing. So I'm really glad that he had mentioned that and that like it just completely changed my whole week.
yeah,
Like never, I mean, I've probably said it like 75 times, but still like I never thought of it that
yeah.
way. Like sometimes being called on constantly by others and needing others, and especially in trauma, in times of
Mhm.
trauma and crisis, that constant giving and giving and giving and giving and giving, like I can keep doing it because he's giving to me.
That's right.
So
Yeah,
yeah.
and taking that time to be full. Something I've thought about. Have you ever watched the movie? I read the book and watched the movie called The Same Kind as Different as Me.
Uh-uh.
It's so good. You'll have to watch it. You'll love it. I think I read the book first, but in the movie, there was a statement in there where this is a woman, very comfortable situation, lives very well off, never been uncomfortable in her life. And she just like opens up about this. And then all of a sudden, there's this point in her life was like, my life means nothing if
Mm-hmm.
all I've did is like feed myself.
Yeah.
I have to do something beyond myself. So she just found like a soup kitchen. She's like, I'm gonna go just start feeding people. Her husband thought she was absolutely crazy. But she got so all in when she got in. And this one guy that would come in was horrible to her, like absolutely terrible, off the chain, cussed her out, act like he could be violent toward her. And she wanted to love him so
Mm.
bad. And she just kept trying and kept trying and kept trying. And they ended up building this relationship, and it's wonderful. But at the end of the movie, he's a whole different guy. And somebody was asking about the impact that she had on his life. And he said, well, she loved the hell out of me. And I
That's funny.
and he said, what I mean is I was so full of darkness and
Yeah.
heaviness and hell
Mm-hmm.
that she literally loved it out of me. And I have just never, that has just landed so hard on me because I'm just like, so many people come in so traumatic, and our first response is just like, turn them away.
Uh-huh.
Just get them out of my sight. Like, I don't want to deal with them. And like, she just took this opportunity to be like, no, he just needs to be loved.
Mm-hmm.
And so she just kept trying and kept trying and kept trying. And I think that oftentimes, like, that's where people want to walk away when it's hard, and it's like, no, that's where we need to lean
Yep.
in,
Mm-hmm.
and not that we need to allow ourselves to be taken advantage, because I know, like, especially at your new office,
Yeah.
you've had some
Yeah.
situations.
Uh-huh.
You have definitely had to say no to some
Yep.
people
Yep.
because of them taking advantage or being harmful towards
Mm-hmm.
you. And I'm not saying we can't, draw lines like that. I do think you have to look out for your own safety. But I do think that a lot of of other ways that people just stop because it's hard.
Yep.
And I think we forget that we're created for those hard things.
Mm-hmm.
And we don't even know what we're capable of endurance wise, perseverance wise until we have to.
Yeah.
Until we put it out there, and those are the stories people are inspired by. They're not inspired by, I was sitting on my couch one day and I threw $10 at someone. Like, that's not
Yeah.
inspirational.
No.
It's when we talk about, like, I've had all of this stuff going on at home myself. Like, I'm a wife, I'm a mother, and I decided one day that I was just going to go and serve the community anyway, and took my kids with me. And,
Mm-hmm.
and whenever I tell people that a lot of what I do is, like, most of what I do is considered volunteer, even though I work like probably 55 hours a
I
week at
bet. I would
least.
say probably more than that.
Yeah, last night it was all day until 8:30. I didn't get home till almost 9. And that's a reality sometimes. But it's like putting yourself in a place where you can be uncomfortable for other people is where people start being challenged. Are you overcoming something? And realizing that you can. And so, like, before we stop talking, Stephanie, I know I haven't heard a ton about your car accident that was
Mm-hmm.
so detrimental, but you overcame a lot with that.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
So, like, tell me just a little bit about, like, do you think that had anything to do with what you're doing
Oh,
now?
for sure.
Yeah.
100%. Like that was definitely my 180
Mm.
turning point. So at that time in my life, I was pretty angry. I was angry at debt, student loan debt.
Mm.
That was one thing that my husband and I, like, we were not getting married until we were debt free. Like that was just something that we both wanted, like our goals. And I was paying $1,000 a month on my student loans. And I had been for a long time, like since I had graduated. And there was this one loan, and my payoff date was NA. And I was paying, I don't know what that exact portion was, but my loans total were $1,000 a month. And I was working so hard, and I was working 2 jobs. I had a full-time job during the day, an 8 to 5. And then after that, I would go and work as a promotional model for Anheuser-Busch. And it was just something for money. Like, it was, sometimes I would get tips. I never did any of the, like I could wear a t-shirt and jeans and then just try to go get people to purchase whatever, or go buy more, or, those sort of things. So it kind of goes back to the sales. Like, I'm pretty good at selling things. And I was working on so much, and I was so angry that, like, these loans are not going down. Like, I am paying so much money for this and nothing's happening. So I was so angry at that point in my life. Like, I'm working so hard for Alex and myself and our future, and it's literally going nowhere. Like, the numbers are still the same, if not going higher on some of the loans. Like, it was just, and I just couldn't see past that anger. So another part of that is that I was working so much that I stopped going to church. And a lot of it was because I was working 8 to 5 during the day, and then I'd work from like 9 to 1, 2 o'clock in the morning.
Wow.
And so then I would go to, get home at like 3, and I usually took a shower. At that time, smoking was allowed in like restaurants and bars and stuff. So I would always take a shower, and then I'd get to bed at 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning and have to be to work at 8. And I was doing that for months. And I was just trying to get any money that I could so that I could just pay all of this off. And I can't remember exactly. It was probably about right at the 2-month mark where I hadn't been to church in like 2 to 3 months. And it was just building and building and building. And there was one Sunday that I had in February. Oh, maybe it was 4 months then. But in February, I woke up on a Sunday, and there was a church in the next town over. And that I was in an area that I didn't grow up in, so I didn't know it super well. In the next town over, and they had a later time to go. So I was like, I should go to that. And then I was like, but I'm really tired, and I have to work, all these hours the next week. And so I went back to bed. And then March went by, and I did the 2 jobs. April went by. I did the 2 jobs. In the start of March, I was coming home from it was at Purdue. I was at Purdue, and I was coming back from Purdue. on Cinco de Mayo, and I fell asleep while I was driving,
Mm.
and I turned the wrong way. So when I got up to this stop sign, I was supposed to turn right to
Mm.
go back home, and it was 4 miles, 3 miles down and 1 mile up. That's how far away it was from my house. But instead of turning that way, I turned this way, and I have no memory of any of this. But I turned this way, and I'm sure I set my cruise because I always do,
Mm.
especially in those back roads in the country and stuff. Set my cruise and drove straight off the end of a T road into a creek and embedded my car into the side of this creek bank. So my car was just like suspended above this deep creek. So I mean, it was a creek, but like it was a very deep one.
Yeah.
And that creek is notorious to flood over on like heavy rains and stuff. So I remember waking up and going like this because it was all dusty. And I would look like this, and all I see is grass in front of me. And I was like, oh, I crashed. Like literally in my mind, it was like so nonchalant, like, oops, I crashed. So I was like, better call my dad. So I reach over in the passenger seat where I always kept my phone to try to grab it so I could call my dad. And it was obviously not there, but so I was like, oh, I'll just look for it. So I'm like reaching around in the bottom, like on the floorboard of the passenger side, trying to find my phone. And when I leaned forward, I hit my mouth on the steering wheel, and I went like this, and I was like, oh, I'm bleeding. And then I was like, okay, well, I just kept looking for my phone. Like, so then I was like, well, maybe it's in the back. So then I'm like trying to find it in the back. And I found a water bottle, and I was like, yeah, I'm kind of thirsty. Like, just so like whatever about
Just
it all.
absolute
Yeah.
shock. You
Uh-huh.
just, yeah, in shock.
So I take a drink of it, and it goes in my mouth and comes out my chin and spills all over. And I put the lid back on it and threw it in the back. And I said, well, that's not going to work. So then I'm just kind of sitting there like, well, I can't find my phone. Like, what am I going to do? So I try opening my door because I could see out that there was a light. And the house was like right there. And so I tried to open my door to try to get out, and I couldn't. It was stuck against the creek bank, and it opened like a teeny bit. And I was
Yeah.
really trying to open it. So then I closed it, and I was like, that's not going to work. And this whole time, like, I thought these events had happened like right after one another. Like, couldn't find the phone, found the water bottle, saw the house, tried to get out. So in reality, I was actually there for about 5 hours.
No kidding.
Because when I was leaving Purdue, I text my dad that I'm on my way home. So that's how we know like about how long I was there. So I, then I remember sitting there, and I was looking in my rear view mirror, and I see out the back windshield that there is a car coming. I could see the headlights, and I was like, cool. Like, now they're going to help me get out and get my phone and call my dad. So I see the headlights come, and then I see the headlights go. And that happened twice. And this is like 3:00 in the morning or something. And I see it twice. And so then I was like, okay, well, maybe they can't see me. And then the next thing that I know, my door's opened, and I hear this guy, and he says, I left my phone at the house. You stay right here. I'm going to go get it. And I was like, okay, cool, thanks. So then they called 911, and then they called my dad because they actually knew my dad. My dad worked for John Deere for 28 years, and he was a farmer. And they had driven down in there to go back and check their fields. So when they drove down in there, they saw me there. So I ended up breaking my jaw in 14 places.
Oh my gosh.
I had to have reconstructive maxillofacial surgery. I had to go to the doctor every single day to make sure that nothing had moved after I got out of the hospital. Put a really hardship on my parents. Like, I couldn't drive myself. They had to drive me every single day to check and make sure the wires and all of that stuff. Then like my mom was making all my food, blending. Like, I could not care for myself. And, thank goodness I had them there to support me through this. But it is, and then the other thing about this is that I absolutely am convinced, like, nobody's going to tell me any different, that was God that created that whole situation. I literally needed a slap in the face to wake up. I was not going down the right path. And he gave it to me. I needed to learn it that hard that's what he did for me. And then after like towards like the later part of recovery and all of that, I had saw pictures. I never saw any pictures. So I know I looked out my rearview mirror and I saw the cars coming. So in the accident, I did not have a rearview mirror and I did not. And when I hit the bank, the trunk popped open. So there was no way that I could have seen out the back window to see somebody coming to help me. And I know that I saw across just from like here down, uh, like tan-ish colored arm holding my mirror so that I could see that somebody was coming to help me when the mirror was gone and it was like on the floor and the trunk was popped open. So just like those sort of things, like that was absolutely meant to happen to me. And I needed something that big and that extreme to happen to me to make me stop doing what I was doing because I wasn't listening to what he was telling me. That time in February when he was like, hey, you need to go to church, like he put that and I ignored it. I had continually been ignoring what God was asking me to do so that I could make more money, so that I could pay off my debt, so that I could do this and then I could do that and then we could do this. It was all very self-centered.
Yeah.
And a lot of it was about money, just trying to get whatever I could to pay off that. And it was absolutely what I needed. I needed that. I needed that 9 month of recovery time. I was released from both of my jobs. I had no income. I had tried to go get unemployment, but I wasn't qualified for it because although I was willing to work, because of my mouth being wired shut, they said I wasn't able to work. Therefore, they would not give me any benefits because I wasn't able to do it. And then another thing that came out of all of that is that there was a lot of toxic people, like in that first job that I was working, that 8 to 5, is a very small office that I was working in, but they were really toxic, people, just like what they were doing, what they were saying. And I was constantly involved in that because it was a very small office and we were just I think there's 5 of us, like we were just all right there. And all of those people, like they mailed me my last paycheck and my office was a mile from the house. Like I used to ride my bike for exercise down to work and ride it back home. And so it's like and they didn't even come and, see how you're doing. Like, I needed that. Like
you had no community whatsoever. Isn't that
just my
crazy?
parents.
You were investing all that time in a place and giving all of yourself away.
Yeah.
And it meant nothing.
Yep. And so I wasn't, now looking back, of course, I'm like, oh, well, that was probably a sign, and I just was so absorbed with myself and trying to do what I wanted to do that I wasn't noticing anything or ignoring. If I did notice it, I was like, I'm going to go back to sleep, and I needed something that big and that traumatic to happen.
What a reality check.
Yeah. And I absolutely needed it. And it's probably one of the best things as far as like life-changing moments other than like getting married and having kids. But that really turned my life around was that car accident.
Wow.
And I needed it. I absolutely had to have it.
I know I had something happen in my life one time and I remember walking through the horribleness of it and coming out on the other side and thinking, Jesus, the next time you need to talk to me, please just sit down and let's talk.
Like, I won't do that again.
Yeah,
like,
I hope I never need that kind of shaking again in my life. And I think like if you allow those kind of things to impact you positively, and be able to see Jesus in it and be like, I hate that I needed it. But here I am. And I want to change my whole life now. And for me, it's been the same way, like horrible events in my life. My brother passing away and then my marriage falling apart were the 2 most pivotal moments of me saying, this isn't the way I want to live. Like there has to be more than what I'm doing right now. And so like that is so encouraging to know that we can use those moments to propel us in an opposite direction
Yep.
and say, okay, show me what it's really about. I want to do that instead of whatever that was,
Mm-hmm.
because here I am empty. I gave all the time, all the effort, and it meant nothing.
Yep.
And so how do I live this life to make sure it means something,
Mm-hmm.
that I leave this impact? Because when I leave this world, whether it's tomorrow or 50 years from now, I can't even imagine. Almost 100 years old. Like, can you imagine how many wrinkles I'm gonna have? It's gonna be great.
I've
But
got titanium, so
hey, well, you don't have to do the facelift.
just this side though.
But I think that like I wanna leave in such a way that people feel the absence of who I was. Not my name. Like it's not like that, but it's just like when she's not here, then we like you feel the echo of who she served.
Mm-hmm.
Like it needs to all point back to Christ, but it's just like because I have a mentor in my life that passed away. And when he left, there was such a hollowness in me. Not because I was like, it wasn't like a deep, I don't know. I don't know how to explain that part of it, except for to say that I realized that there was a giant hole because of the impact that he had made. And I wanted to live that same
Yeah.
way. And his name was Pastor Dave. And I loved that man so much. I was just thinking about him this week because I had wrote some things in my journal about him. But he impacted lives. He was not a perfect man. And I think that's where people get lost. I'm not qualified. I don't have a degree. I don't have time. Like you were
Mm-hmm.
saying, like you thought you didn't have time. It was all about the money, getting to this
Yep.
one particular goal or task. And
Mm-hmm.
he's like, no, it's not actually about that at
Yeah.
all. Like slow it down, use the gifts that I've given you. And like you have a fearlessness about you that is just like, I'm just going to go ask.
Yeah. That, and and what's the other side of the accident is that, so my goal before the accident, I needed to pay this debt off.
Yeah.
So after the accident, I then incurred so much more debt in medical debt. It was my insurance was from Illinois or Missouri, maybe it was Maurice's, so I'm not sure. That's probably Missouri. But anyways, I was in Indiana working. So I was out of network. So although my insurance covered like a tiny part of it, I had so much debt. And then because a lot of it was dental work after the surgery and all of that stuff, my medical insurance would not cover a single dime because it was dental work, not medical. And so that was $20,000 in dental work that was out of pocket. And so it was just, and I remember thinking like, okay, whatever, we'll figure it out. Like where before I would have been like, oh no, like what are we doing here?
Yeah.
And Alex, who's my husband now, we were just dating at the time. We sat down one day and we were just talking about like, oh no, I got another bill, and the hospital bills, the ambulance bill was $1,500 and the remaining hospital bill, I think, was $1,500 or something like that. And so he's like, why don't we just write a letter and just explain like why all of this happened, all of that. And I was like, well, it's probably not going to.
It can't hurt anything.
Yeah, like, all right, whatever. So we did, and we sent it off, and the hospital called me and they wrote off the rest of what I owed them, just because I had somebody that cared enough to sit down and say like, why don't we try this?
And I think that's too, like people take it like that's the favor of God.
Mm-hmm, absolutely.
Like the favor of God, and he will lead you to situations that you should not get favor in, or other people don't get favor in. But it's like, slow it down and ask me how I want to do it. And I have ran into that so many times, and it was like, your way is always better. Like, why don't I go to you first?
Dang it.
Here I am, been saved all these years, but I still struggle with like, you first, So that is so beautiful. Thank you for sharing that with me. And I think people need to hear it.
Absolutely.
You can make a choice after something traumatic like that to do something good with your life.
Yeah, because it would have been really easy to go back to being angry, because then I would have had an extra thing to be angry about.
Exactly. Or be depressed and overwhelmed by it and use it as an excuse to do nothing.
And I lost everything. I lost all my income, but those student loans, they're going to keep accruing, and it was, which they did.
Yeah.
And then I had more debt, and it was just, I never, after like while I was at home recovering, I never I was so at peace
Yeah.
with it. Like, more debt? Okay. Like, we'll just get it figured out.
Yeah.
And, it didn't take long after that point for all of it. I paid off $42,000 in debt, some student loans that I had left in a year. After that, my grandparents allowed me to live with them, so I didn't have to pay rent or anything. And back here where my job was, and I worked 2 jobs again, which I think a lot of my family was not in favor of that, since that's what I was doing to get into the place.
Yeah.
But I worked a first shift and a second shift instead of a second and a third, or a first and a third.
Yeah.
And it was, a lot easier, but I had support. And that's what a lot of people that we work with don't.
That's exactly
have.
right. Yeah. I think back to a lot of the things that I went through. If I had had no community and no family, there's no telling where I'd be right now. And I will hear people's story and think I walked parallel except for. And the reason that I was exceptional and able to come out of those is because of my community and support.
Yeah. And sometimes we have to be that support for our clients, or
because
for
they don't
whoever.
have, it's not like they're just choosing not to call their moms.
Yeah.
They don't have a mom, or what they do have in a mom is in worse shape than they are.
Yes.
And so that is the continued story. And so being able to just acknowledge that, and it's a place of gratitude, really, because me and you come from good backgrounds with solid families. And so when you're full of gratitude and you don't take that for granted, it helps you, instead of just being like, well, everybody has this. No, they don't.
Yeah, absolutely.
No, they
do
don't.
not.
And it changes your story when that happens. But
And I think that accident too helped me now, where I'm at now, because I know what it's like to lose my income, lose both of my jobs, lose all what I thought were my friends,
and be out of control of what's happening in your life. Like, you have no control.
Nope. I couldn't even say what I wanted to eat. Like, can you blend it? Then fine.
Yeah.
That's what
Keep me alive.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
And and that's where a lot of the people that we work with are at.
Yeah.
And I can go back to that spot and remember that feeling on what that felt like, and be able to relate to some of our clients and be able to walk with them through that. Like, I've been there. Like, I know exactly what you're feeling. And although I can't say that to every single person that I come across, but that feeling that I had during my accident is something that you can apply to different situations.
Absolutely.
And
just helps you relate.
Yeah. And that's what matters. And that's what matters to people that have nobody.
That's exactly right. Well, I think this is a good place to stop. I think that we could talk forever.
Probably.
And we can have a part 2 and talk more as we go along. And because I think oftentimes we should talk about that on a podcast. So let's save some of that for another day. But thank you for sharing.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think it's super encouraging, because the whole purpose of this podcast is to spur other people on to do something great. And no excuses.
Yep.
Do with what you have where you are. And
because it's enough.
It's enough. Just do that. Just start there. And who knows where it's going to go. I mean, we're sitting in the hallway. We haven't even talked about this. Of a 35,000 square foot school that you're helping me paint. That's why everything is the way it is. But I think it's a cool place to start, because this literally started in a pantry in my house.
Yeah.
This is where it started. Me saying yes during COVID with a pantry in my house and a free table out front. And so I think that people limit people and limit themselves mostly. So stop making excuses. Do what you can with what you have, and roast all the excuses for it, and go order some Susu Wanda coffee. It might help. I'm just saying.
It's so
like
good.
A good cup of
It's
coffee,
so good.
Changes everything for me. Maybe you're not a coffee drinker. I don't know those people very well. They're not usually my people, but
it's
there's
so
a
good.
few of you out there. But thank you for joining me today.
Yes.
Boom Roasted. You can check us out on YouTube, on all the socials, and we're on Buzzsprout too if you like the audio version. So please check that out. And we would love to connect with you if you have any questions.